Here we are at question 22 of LSAT PrepTest 157, second section, the first logical reasoning section. And as always, if we haven't already, we're going to select one of those three highlight colors so that we can mark the question task to start engaging the problem. The conclusion drawn above follows logically if which one of the following is assumed. So I'm going to just highlight that task word of assumed, knowing that we're going to have to read the paragraph on the left-hand side, identify the conclusion, highlight that conclusion, and then identify in the answer choices a fact that 100% must be true in order to believe that conclusion as valid. So we read from the top of the paragraph. Because of the ubiquity of television in modern households, few children today spend their free time reading stories, which lack the visual appeal of flashy television programs. Thus, few children today will develop a lifelong interest in literature. And a way that you can go a little bit faster here is when there isn't any question as to what the conclusion is, just highlight it immediately. And we've got ultimately a causality where it's saying that simply because television is everywhere in modern households and these children today don't spend their free time reading stories that lack the visual appeal of flashy television programs, there's no other possible outcome except that few children today, those ones that are spending the time reading stories, are going to be the ones that develop a lifelong interest in literature. So we're going to go to the answer choices, keeping that highlight tool selected, finding reasons to eliminate. Starting with choice A. No children who spend their free time reading stories fail to develop a lifelong interest in literature. Well, here, we're not talking about there being no exception to this idea that if you read free time or you read in your free time, that you're guaranteed to develop a lifelong interest in literature. And furthermore, the qualifier of few, you don't have to have the same exact number of few match the other mention of few. So for a couple of reasons, we can eliminate choice A as just being an incorrect quantity that doesn't apply to the conclusion. Next, we have choice B. Only those people who currently spend their free time reading stories will develop a lifelong interest in literature. Well, this may seem to go a little bit beyond the quote unquote scope of the argument, but people include children. So we can't necessarily eliminate choice B. I can understand that you might not want to select it proactively, but at the very least, we're going to leave it open for now. Then choice C, no children who grow up in a household that lacks a television fail to spend their free time reading stories. Well, we don't talk about children's that or households that lack a television. We just say that television is everywhere, and it could be in one of those households with a television that a child would, one of the few, spend time reading stories. So we can eliminate choice C as introducing a variable that has no impact on the conclusion. Those children that would be in a household that lacks a television, we can highlight that as a clear reason to eliminate. Then choice D, few people who watch a great deal of television. Okay, a great deal of television. It says that television is in modern households or everywhere, if you know what the word ubiquity means, but it doesn't say that those people within these households watch a great deal of television. It just says that they don't read ultimately, or at least few of the children do. So we can eliminate choice D as needing additional information to definitively relate it to the conclusion. And then choice E, few children who spend their free time reading stories watch television. Okay, again, those children who spend their free time reading stories watch television when they're working or as background noise. There's a lot of different times they could watch television that isn't free. It could be at the dinner table when their parents make them sit down. So this choice 2 is not going to have a direct impact on that conclusion. Now, remember our negation test for assumption tasks. And when you're looking at choice B, you can just apply the not to the qualifier as opposed to the main verb. So if I read, not only those people who currently spend their free time reading stories will develop a lifelong interest in literature, well, now I've attacked the evidence directly because it said that few children today spend their free time reading stories. Well, if it's not only those people who currently spend their free time reading stories that develop a lifelong interest in literature, a lot more children could develop a lifelong interest in literature today. So you could see you might not pick choice B on the way in on the first pass through the answer choices. Allow two passes through the answer choices when necessary. And remember that the negation test can help clarify why an assumption is necessary for an argument such as that in question 22.